I don't know if this does it. Okay. How are you guys doing today? Can you hear me? Okay, good. So our panel today is for refurbishing and automation. There's a couple people missing on that slide that's up there. I think it's going to get updated hopefully at some point. But all the information that you'll need we'll get to you guys after. So in this session, we wanted to talk about automation and refurbishing within the ITAD and mobility, pretty much anything really. What can you automate from a process and procedures? How is it that you can look at making things easier, more consistent, save you money and save you time? I hope that's what you guys are here for. If you guys were here for something else, it's the wrong room. So, okay, good. My name is George Abdelmalak. I am from Blanco. I'm the Director of Sales for Mobility for North America. We often work with our sellers and our processors on automation. Some of the things that we have done to go over that and make sure that people get what they need is, having a customized workflow where people are able to move around these blocks on a click and drop kind of methodology and be able to change their process flow at a drop of a button. We also have intelligent business routing, which you can put in rules and saying, if then, this is the result, right? And those are all the things that most of the people that we're working with are looking for. So I'm going to turn it over and introduce the panel. I'll start with Jordan. If you can give a kind of who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Yeah, so Jordan Inslee, I'm from Seattle, Washington. I also live in Arizona and Indianapolis. We now have 3 facilities, contracted by a lot of the big box retail stores and some ITAD partners, and bring in a lot of that product and then sell the product direct to consumer back on online marketplaces, such as eBay.
Great. Corey?
Corey Donovan with Alta Technologies. We're up in Minneapolis, and we're your classic reseller, broker, dealer. We buy $30 million in usable data center assets per year, and so processing all that, automation's key to us. Look forward to talking about it. I just heard that the vacuum magnet, Dyson, he said he's 20% dissatisfied with just about everything in life all the time and always trying to improve it, and I find that's sort of how we continue to add things to our stack. And I look forward to chatting about that.
That's awesome. Ben?
Hi guys, my name's Ben. I'm from Essex in the UK. I represent a small trading division of Global Resale, which is an ITAD providing lifecycle services. And what Smart does is handle the injection of Windows keys into refurbished devices. So we recently moved that whole process into the cloud rather than having a clunky on-prem server that nobody really wants to look after. So, yeah.
Cool. Sujay?
Yep, Suji Jagannathan, founder and CEO of Trust Clarity. We're a product insight and commerce platform, so what we do is we convert Excel spreadsheets filled with excess inventory or a lot that you just purchased with many, many SKUs, and we convert those into online listings with a click of a few buttons. So we've automated that process. We do that by pulling in photographs, descriptions, spec sheets, you name it, related to product information, and work on that. Prior to this, I ran Canada's largest set-top box and internet modem refurbishing company, and excited to speak with you today.
Thank you guys. Welcome to the panel. I have some questions set up. We're going to go over it. Nothing to surprise you or, nothing personal, I promise. Anyway, the first question I have is, how have you changed your business with automation and refurbishment? And, just raise your hand and talk to the mic, whatever you got to do, and we'll kind of pass it along. Anybody have any?
Yeah, I don't want to go first. So one of the big issues that we had as part of Global Resale is the injection of keys required an on-prem server. And we also support third-party refurbishers as well, and they would also have to have an on-prem server. So for us, the difficulties that we were having is if you've got, Joe down the street who's operating a small, maybe IT refurbishment company, a small IT shop, he doesn't really have the knowledge or the infrastructure or the money to have an on-prem server and manage that. So we needed to find a way to build a piece of middleware that basically sits in between what Microsoft do and what the end user is doing, which is trying to refurbish a device and inject a key, and work out how we can simplify that. And that's why we thought about moving it into the cloud. So the problems that we've got there is the devices that someone would need to set up the server is just way too complicated for smaller users and even, bigger people with their own infrastructure. So we've completely simplified that.
Okay, that one question is a very open question, right? How have you changed your business with automation and refurbishment? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of you kind of that same question, and I have a follow-up question. So before we move on to the next person or company, the follow-up question to that is, what are some of the pitfalls you fell into in implementing those? What are some of the things that you had to overcome in putting that together?
Yeah, I mean, some of the pitfalls, right, is people don't like change. So when Microsoft announced last year that they were doing away with the paper covers that are on the bottom of most refurbished PCs that you'll see, and even some of the newer ones, they announced last year, I think in March or April, that they're not doing them anymore. So some people, instead of having to change the whole business, they just went, well, we're not going to do installing Windows anymore, right, because it's too complicated for them to set up on-prem. So what people did was they just completely forgot about loading Windows onto devices and were selling them without. So now we're trying to get back into the market and explain to them, it's actually a lot easier than they think now because technology's come obviously quite a long way.
That's a great point. All right, Sujat, I'll go to you. What did you guys do in terms of how did you change your business with automation and refurbishment?
Yes, so I'll start with when I was running the refurbishing company, we had racks upon racks upon racks, so much square foot filled with excess inventory, parts, components, finished goods that we repair that were never picked up by a customer. And at the same time, all the telecom operators were coming to us with these long lists, thousands of line items of, do you want these servers? Do you want this? Do you want? And I'm like, we don't have enough time to figure out how to handle this. And so that being said, I said, okay, there's got to be a solution for this. The ownership didn't want to go down that path, so I started Trust Clarity, and that's part of how Trust Clarity formed. We automated that entire process of taking an Excel spreadsheet, understanding line by line what it is, giving eyes on it, like, oh, that's actually worth $20,000. I thought that was scrap, and that's how much it's selling for on Amazon, and these are the spec sheets, and we simplified it. So we took that pain point away of identification of what that product is, and built technology to solve and automate just the quick resale of it.
That's great. Corey, what about you for next automation and refurbishment?
Yeah, so we started in 1995, a couple guys with screwdrivers, right? And it's fun to think about how we went from that start to basically where our warehouse is like Rise of the Robots now.
Rise of the Robots.
It's not. That's a pipe dream, right? I think a lot of, how many refurbishers are out in the audience? We have some refurbishers, and how many of you have physical automation going on? I mean, that's great. There's a couple people, but generally we see this with recycling, the physical automation. But what we've gotten to do is bolt on to our existing systems on the software side, right? On the process side, process automation. And we're on a legacy ERP that's built on an old FoxPro database. We're finally moving to the cloud, which gets us excited about APIs and all that. But before that, we had to figure out how to get things done, problems in our systems, labels that wouldn't print alongside a process where it just makes sense to do two things at once, right? So we'd have someone write a script. We would bolt on a tool to do the receiving process so we could visualize it where old ERP didn't do that. And I think in sum, what we needed to do was meet all of you guys earlier so that we weren't building this all ourselves, but we built that together as best we could.
I think that's a great question about how do you work with others and where are you going to do it, whether you're going to outsource it or in-house it, and what the advantages are. We'll get to that later. Jordan, what about yourself in terms of how did you automate and refurbish your business?
George, so what we started with 16 years ago was having that vision. Being able to have something in the cloud. We've had a platform that we continue to build widgets into. Originally it was adding inventory, selling inventory, managing that inventory, then managing returns. Then having that product then show up on a marketplace, then having that product come back and go down those funnels. And it just seems like it continues to evolve to where you're having less and less touch points. Yeah. And then when the product goes through, it gets integrated with different diagnostic erasure tools. It gets integrated with whether it's if the device is locked or not, or if it's blacklisted or any of those different widgets, it tells you that in real time.
That's great. What are some of the pitfalls that you guys ran into as you were kind of growing and seeing, and I can imagine making some of the changes to the cloud and the widgets that you speak of, If something breaks, it breaks, right? Or is it?
My profit and loss report. I mean,
That's a good one. That's your pitfall, your profit and loss. That's good.
yeah, no, so I think that the biggest pitfall has been you just don't, when you're the first one starting to do something, that there's changes, there's impacts that happen. One of the ones that I remember early on, 10 years ago, we were one of the first ones to work with like FedEx's WisDole system. And all of a sudden, all these orders start coming in. We had some type of a deal online, and we started overnighting every product that went out.
Wow.
And people in our operations didn't realize that. You just kind of figure that out as you go. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit since then. A little bit more QA, but
that's a lot of change, a lot of fast.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
So Jordan, we ran into just similar issues with that maturation, right? Where we're bolting things on, and we wouldn't have documentation. And let's say Sergey leaves, the one who coded the solution and knows how to fix it or add things to it, and he's not there anymore. And so we've now done our best to document any of those new add-on platforms that we've done, and given all of our individuals tools like Snagit, which are screen capture tools that allow you to record what you're doing as you're doing it and do a voiceover on it. And that really helps to record at least that and document it, and then have someone put that into a Word or PDF document as a guide.
Yeah, no, we've got everything documented behind the scenes. Again, our dev team started with just a couple people, and with some of the retail partnerships and integrations with marketplaces and everything else that's going on, it's grown to be a more significant team.
What added value have you guys seen from these automation tools or processes that you guys have seen? I mean, this might not be a question for all of you, but just everybody here wants to know, what's the added value? Is it revenue? Is it labor? Is it quality? Is it all of it? I think that those are things that we all kind of tackle on a daily basis, is how can I make sure it's consistent? How can I make sure it's efficient? And how do I not lose my ass on it? Right? I mean, sure, sorry.
Yeah, no, for us, it's increased reusability. That's our primary focus, right? So shining light on products that otherwise would be, at threat or at risk of going to landfill, or, it's not a bad thing, but going to a recycler. But the best option is for it to go in the hands of somebody that can actually use the product. And that's our number one objective, increased reusability.
So is the best result for it to go to somebody's hand, or is it the best result not to have something fall through the cracks?
From our perspective, we'd like the product to find its way to somebody that can use it.
Fair enough.
At the worst case, prevent it from going to landfill.
Yeah, I'm just asking because there's some products that it costs more to process than to sell, right? I mean, at that point, you're just like, I just want to make sure it doesn't end in a landfill, Anybody else on the added values? Something that you guys in particular saw a lift in, whether it was, revenue or quality or labor?
Well, for us, our tool is able to mitigate a lot of operational risk that comes from hiring, if you've got 40-odd technicians on a shop floor and using the old Microsoft way, it was just like a WinPE script that allowed you to inject a key. Then what would happen is they would all go out to lunch, they would come back, and they would forget that they had injected a key. So they would have to inject another one, which costs you another X amount, right?
Yeah.
So in 1 month, we did like a sort of trial run in our headquarters in Austin, and we wasted around $6,000. Wow. So for us, this tool was a way for us to record and document which key had been assigned to which device, and then relay that information back and say, hold on, you've injected a key here already, we'll just pull the same one down again. So for us, a huge money saving that we could then pass on to our other refurbishers.
I wonder why my license count went down with global resale. No, I'm just joking. What about you, Corey?
Well, we created a system at one point where we added custom labeling for a specific customer, and we've heard that they've told us all of their other vendors whine about this custom labeling, but we were able to implement it, get it done, delighted them, doubled in value, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in business with that customer, because we just do it, and we deliver it, and it's never wrong, and it's because it's automated. And I think on top of that, we have employees who aren't frustrated, right? If we were scrambling to do it without the automated tool built in, we'd create frustration on the team. And I think some of these processes we do just creates engagement with the team. They feel like we're doing new things, that they have a voice. We let them, as the people close to the issues, advocate for these automations to go in place. And you see they really love their jobs as a result.
That's great. Jordan?
I think the biggest one for us is just scalability.
Yeah.
Trying to hit those KPIs. When you have products that start on a line, they get received, then they start to go through, diagnostics, erasure, kitting, grading, be put away, and essentially be sold. When those products automatically get pushed back to our channels, that's really, I think, what kind of helps. Now, one step that we went one step further with all the R2 V3 fun challenges and compliance of the past year, we went one step further with accessories. Obviously, we have to go and test that and make sure that that's a quality measure that we're working with. We went and started to serialize every accessory. It then serializes it back to that SKU to make sure that the proper SKU is getting the proper accessory going forward. Again, tries to minimize the amount of product that's going down the wrong funnel.
Yeah.
And make sure that, again, customers getting best quality.
And reduce returns. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great idea. All right, so the next thing I have is what are the first steps in evaluating the need for change? So what are some of the things that you guys go, I think you kind of gave Ben a little bit of a touch on that with the key, right? Like you're seeing that people were touching it and going to lunch, come back, go, I'll do it again. But some other examples of going, this needs to change, right? And what drives that change? I know the answer in most cases in the customers I talk to, but I want to know from you guys, what is it that you look for and go, how do I address the, 20% of dislike from Dyson, right? Yeah. Why don't we start with you, Corey, if there's, how you guys evaluate that need?
Sure. Well, I think the reality is that if there is that frustration, there's usually a solution. You might have to spend a little money. You might have to work with the team, but what I'd advise is get closest to the people, closest to the problem. As leaders, we want to just put forward what we want to change, but we need to be listening to our people about what's frustrating them, getting them in a group of people, in a room, and letting them discuss it yourselves. We recently, we just implemented a solution for listing products on the web that's picked up our listings from 3,000 to 12,000 this year alone. We had a big goal with that. And it's all because of this team that we built. We call it 21 Jump Street because it's all young people who are doing this listing process for us. And the leader of the team is a 20-year-old kid. And so we had them get together in a room and figure out ways to improve the process so we could speed it up, have better things in the system. Well, the leader of the team, who again is only 20, was in the room. They came up with 2 ideas, which were good ideas, but they weren't the whole story. Then Matt, this 20-year-old kind of crew leader, left the room and let them come up with ideas, and they filled an entire whiteboard. And it's changed that process, and it really enabled our system to work. And the reason is we let the people close to the system come up with the ideas.
That's great. Anyone else want to add to how you evaluate the change or what drives it, or is it just one of those, I see a constant problem?
I think that's really what it is on our end is you just kind of understand what's working, what's not. Mm-hmm. If you were to walk out on your floor, in your warehouses, in your facilities, is there something that sticks out? What's the lowest hanging fruit that just takes too long? And continuing to challenge yourselves and continuing to say, well, it should really take this amount of time. How many times are you touching that product? How many times are you then putting that inventory up in steel? Some of our facilities, we've actually gotten rid of steel because we just look at it and say, well, now you need a forklift person. Now you need someone to put that up. Now you need someone to bring that back down. At the end of the day, we don't want the inventory sitting there that long in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's, always trying to kind of look and see what's in the facility and where you can improve and just always be ready to improve. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that. I've been to a lot of warehouses where they're triple or quadrupled stacked, and I'm like, I don't think that's the goal here, but okay, that's just me. You had something to add, Sushi?
Yeah, no, just similar to Echo. It's just kind of identifying what the problem is and looking at what is the root cause of the problem, and trying to think outside the box if there's any kind of other way to address that, right? And so that's where it stems from, I guess.
Great. Ben, I'll start with you on this one. What are some of the trends you are seeing in our industry that will, drive the future of automation?
Again, my background is in software, right? SaaS, software as a service. So I think anywhere you can unify data so that it can be used multiple times, I think you're onto a winner. Rather than just, again, it goes back to the whole multiple touch thing. You want to take that data once and you want to make the most out of it. If you're auditing a device, and you can grade it while it's there, if you can inject the key while it's there, if you can wipe it while it's there, you haven't got to, again, put it up into the still, bring it back down again. So I think it's all about, the unification of that data.
So unification, good. Anybody else want to add to what they see as the future or something changing in our industry in terms of automation?
Personally, I just think there's a lot more standardization that needs to come into the industry.
Yeah.
You know, this is what a used device is. This is what the quality of what that device is. It's always going to be very difficult to make, all the different marketplaces and everyone think alike because everyone wants to differentiate themselves. However, with that being said, if you don't have standardization, everyone's going to be able to spin something one way or the other.
Agreed.
Yeah, the focus on enterprises and the importance of ESG and ESG programs and their scores in particular. There's a lot of board members that are getting fired because ESG is not a part of a particular organization, like a public company's focus. So I think what's going to be happening in the future is there's going to be a lot more focus on in particular ESG metrics, and there's scores that enterprises and public companies are getting evaluated and graded on, and in order to hit those scores, there's going to be metrics, and in order to get metrics, you need to be measuring and providing that kind of data and actually documenting that data. So I think there's going to be a lot more, in terms of in the future. If not already, but there's going to be even more emphasis on gathering data, making sure you have the right policies, procedures, and metrics and measurements available to calculate, what you're doing in terms of helping offset, emissions and everything else that's going on in the space.
That's good. Corey, you have anything to add on the industry trends or changes?
Maybe specifically a little bit broader. In terms of right now I feel like we're kind of at the mechanical Turk stage of a lot of automation that's being put in place. And if anyone's heard of that, Amazon has a program called Mechanical Turk, but it's based on actually an automaton, which is sort of like these wooden robot type of things they'd make in the 1750s out of mechanical parts, which they're really cool. But this Mechanical Turk was made, which would play anybody in the game of chess. And people thought it was a robot that was beating people at chess. There were people in the city square who would run away from it, right? Because they thought it was a demon. In reality, there was a person sitting inside of it, and people were fooled for decades on this Mechanical Turk. It was made by Baron von Kempelen, an Austrian-Hungarian guy. And Amazon created this product, which is where you can send them micro tasks to do that are fulfilled by people all around the world for a penny a piece. Maybe it's writing descriptions for your products or an alt tag for an image or whatever, right? But it's still the man and the machine, and that's okay because we're starting to realize what possibly could be automated. So, by creating these things using resources and staff around the world, around the country, at a micro level, maybe it's in our organizations, we're learning the process, we're building the systems that will allow us someday to use, more automation, possibly even machine learning at some point.
Well, actually, when I was asking this question and listening to what you guys are saying, I was like, maybe we should dig a little deeper in this and think about, from a software perspective, if there's machine learning or AI or some kind of trend that's coming out that people are trying to solve for. And then maybe on the processing side, a lot of the things that we hear about are robotics and how that was going to automate. We've looked at this, even if you look outside of processing and refurbishment, you look at how people are cutting labor through self-service devices and things of that nature. So I'm just kind of curious what you guys run into in terms of automation from that perspective and some things that you've thought, cool idea, maybe in 5-6 years it'll get there, but right now it's too expensive, too hard to implement. Labor or people, capital is probably cheaper and faster to move. I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing out an idea. And this is not on the questions of the century, so this is pop quiz, right? So, just curious.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, so AI is real. It's changing the game. Fundamentally, just the applications of AI are limitless in terms of the ability to, in the future, it'll be able to take a picture and the computer will be able to tell you, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And there's going to be all kinds of various applications. It's going to be unlimited in terms of how to, process all the data that we've got. And, I'm pretty sure it would be too long to list But AI is certainly a powerful technology that's very real and going to be automating pretty much every aspect of production and facilities. The other element is blockchain. Provenance is a key word. It's basically proof of origin, where products were, the authenticity of products. Soon, in the horizon, in the distant future, or maybe in the near future, a lot of products will be tracked on a blockchain in terms of where they was manufactured, authenticity, original parts, counterfeit parts. A lot of these kind of measures will be tracked and measured. And this technology is going to be behind, providing additional trust and transparency in supply chain processes. So something else to look into, for certainly that's on the horizon.
Good point. Jordan, anything to add? Or?
I think for us, one of the biggest surprises for me over the last couple years being out in Indianapolis, we invested a lot in conveyor belts and diverting this and diverting that way, and reading tracking numbers and reading barcodes and going whatever direction based on what that product is. Part of the part that was just kind of head scratching is after we get all this installed, speaking to our developers and speaking to them about what's actually behind the scenes. It's actually really old, dated technology.
Really?
That's moving things along. So it's again, it's kind of weird. Like you have all these robots and eyes and this and that, but the fundamentals behind the code that's going with the conveyor belts and moving things this way and that way is still very dated.
Do you think that's because they have to build it with the foundation, or like start at a simplistic level, and then maybe eventually it'll grow into more of a computer learning, and okay, it just keeps learning and learning, or is it this just like don't fix what's broken?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think on the latter side of it, again, when you look at the investment that we made to have those belts and bring that product in, it was just the investment of we're moving thousands and thousands of boxes every day. So instead of having a person have to go and move that around, that was the cost-benefit analysis for us.
Got it.
That was the biggest surprise.
Corey?
So I think around how we move materials and price things and cost things may make its way down to us on an AI level, because you hear about the quants on Wall Street already deploying AI and what they can price things at, when to buy, when to strike, right? And so it'll be telling us where to send our materials, which materials to look for, what to overpay for, underpay for. And so it's going to be a while for that to get downstream to us, but that's something where I could see AI coming in.
Ben, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, just mirroring what the guys are saying, really. I think being that, digital injection is a fairly new process, I think as and when it's more fleshed out, we're going to be able to automate a lot more of it.
Yeah.
It's just about understanding the industry, I guess. So.
Yeah, I mean, from things that we've seen over the last, I don't know, probably about 3 years, call it pre-COVID to COVID, with cost of labor and recruitment being so high, a lot of these, automated features, robotic features, belts and whistles that you can kind of move a lot and kind of cut labor have really like resurfaced and been very valuable. Let me take that back. Have been very prevalent in the market. And they might be a little bit more expensive than we're used to, but still cheaper than paying somebody in a warehouse $20-something now, right? Where it was like 14 3 years ago. So I see a lot of that happening from that point of view. Next question I had was, how have third parties affected your approach to automation, and what challenges have you come up against?
I mean, I'm happy to lead on that. So, obviously, working with quite closely with Microsoft, when we approached them and said, this is our plan, this is what we're doing right now, this is where we want to get to. For refurbishers, we're quite a small drop in the ocean for them, right? They're focused on working with the OEMs, and the OEMs seem to get all the new Flash software. So we were kind of left a bit in the dark, so we had to develop our own solution. So whilst we had some sort of drive from Microsoft, we were sort of, again, left in the dark with it a bit. But I think that really helped us steer, ask our customers what they want from the product and be able to build it that way rather than say, well, this is what Microsoft want us to do. We've got to draw a fine line between what is needed from Microsoft's point of view with reporting on, which keys have been activated and the hardware specification that comes with it, the stuff that they need to know to activate the machine. And then again, what the actual refurbisher wants and needs, all the way from, when they wipe the drive with Blanco to activating it with our software. So, yeah.
Good point. Anyone else dealing with third parties and their requests?
These big companies just move too slow.
That's actually a good point. Big companies move too slow, but they're very demanding. They'll ask you for stuff, and it's like, oh my God, I need it. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, you have to get approved by 17 million people. So I see that. I know that from a third party perspective and dealing with them, some of the times, or even customers will request things from you and say, this is what I need. This is going to change my business. And you go out there and you develop it and they go, yeah, it didn't do what we wanted it to do, right? And it happens to us a lot. So a lot of times in our industry, or at least in our company, we look at what is customer driven versus what is industry driven. And so how does that affect your business? Do you look at that from your perspective and say, is it good for me, or is it good just for my customer, or is it something I really need to make sure that we change everything going on? I know that's a very high level, vague question, but
I think that it goes down to that funnel thing that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Where is the product going? What is your customer needs? What is your business needs? What are you doing with that inventory? Someone earlier said, well, we get it, we then put it on Amazon. Okay, well, if Amazon has those needs, that's the funnel that you get to start playing with.
Yeah, it's a big funnel to say no to, right?
Yeah.
All right, next question I have is, if a company has not looked at automation, where would be a good place to start?
The bank.
The bank. The bank is good. Why the bank?
I'm just kidding. But
Well, automation can be expensive, right? It is a lot of CapEx in some of the cases. Would you guys agree or disagree with that, depending on what the automation is? Yeah.
you just have to kind of have a vision of where the future is going. And again, are you in this for a couple years? Or are you in it for 20? Trying to understand, like you talked about earlier with labor.
Wait, what bank do you go to that takes your vision and says, here's a check? I think that's a good question. I don't know,
Yeah. So again, just really trying to kind of understand where you're trying to go. What's the ultimate goal of the business?
Yeah.
Is the business just to continue to serve enterprise clients? Is the business to become a direct-to-consumer seller? What's the business's purpose?
I think that's a good one.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be expensive. There are, cloud platforms. So depending on what you're doing and what your appetite is, but a lot of, traditionally, certainly, 10 years ago, it was extremely expensive for software. But now, with this movement to the cloud, where basically if you're a software company, you got to have a freemium model. You can try it out. You can try smaller instances. You could do proof of concepts with software companies. Just try a small bit, see if it works, and then go for larger programs. So if you find a software-based solution, it doesn't always have to be super expensive. Now, if you want to automate your warehouse, your entire receiving with RFIDs and let everything go on conveyor belts, 100%, go to the bank, good luck. But there's definitely other things to do.
Agreed.
To follow on that, I don't know how many of you have heard of low-code and no-code software solutions. They're evolving rapidly, these software platforms that someone in your organization can usually code up to create some of these automations. It's sort of, I think of like websites. In 1999, you had to pay someone $500,000 to make your website, and then by 2010, there was someone in your office that could do it, and now you can flip one up yourself, depending on the platform that you use, right? And so, I think looking for the simple things to do, there are easy ways. Set the big vision. We want to start automating process, right? But what can we do locally? There's tools like auto hotkey and macros on Excel, where you just can record something you're doing on your screen, a multi-step process, like open my ERP, create a sales transaction, and enter a customer, and suddenly you've got a one-key hotkey that you can create if you create that order 12 times a day for your customer. And so things like that. And Ben, would you mind helping me out for a second? Hold this up. So I like looking for ideas in parallel markets too. So this is a Stream Deck, and it's something that streamers use for like YouTube and different things, right? And so my kid knew about these, and I'm like, well, that's cool. These are all little hotkeys, and you can't see it now, but they light up when it's connected to your computer. And you could take that hotkey that you created and then create an active button on it, which maybe looks like your customer's logo. Boom, hit that logo, a new sales order pops up and saves you maybe a minute of time. You do that every day across multiple people. Suddenly you're having a lot of things. So we're looking at implementing these Stream Decks with our logistics teams as they're creating orders. So little things like that are great ways to start.
Very cool.
Just to add on to that, I think a lot of people try and tackle a problem the most complicated way, right? And they're not looking, or they do look to try and reinvent the wheel. A company that I was at previously, they wanted a better way to manage customer service tickets that were coming in. And they were like, we'll build a platform, it will talk to our emails, it will deal with our order management system. And I was like, there's hundreds of people that do that already. We're going to waste so much time and money building our own. So we looked at the cost difference and was like, well, we might as well go with someone like, Zendesk, I think was the one we settled with before. And since we made the switch, they are developing that all the time and adding new features that we could have never done if we'd done that in-house. So it's important to look at, not just what you need right now, but what you might need in the future.
Yeah, and outsources versus in-house, right? Always a big thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about was how do you get buy-in when implementing automation and change, right? I mean, I think everybody here that's running a team or a company, getting them to change what they're doing, the success of your automation depends on people bought in is something I really believe in. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that you have to get your team involved. Your operations team needs to be able to execute. Everyone needs to be on the same page of when things are changing. Be able to do it in some type of a QA environment, be able to, test, make sure that before you go into production and you're changing everything, you're not going to fall on your face.
So get buy-in by doing QA or a POC,
Absolutely.
addressing some of their concerns and making sure that this is a solution to their problems, not something that you came up with while riding the bike into work today.
Well, it probably got started riding the bike.
Sure.
Took a little time to get there.
Anyone else on the?
No, I mean, the same goes for customers too, right? So you can implement the change to improve your process, but if it impacts your customer's process, you got to kind of get them on board as well and kind of make sure that everyone's aligned on what the benefit is of the change and kind of empower them and hopefully see some quick results and demonstrate quick results is kind of key when kind of going through a change.
Yeah, I've run into that where you literally have a solution for a customer and they go, this would work great. We know this will work great, but we can't do it because what we do is what we know and it's going to take us too much time to change it. And that's a whole different conversation, but that's a good point. Anyone else on buy-in internally?
Well, we already spoke about elevating someone's idea. If you're doing that, you'll usually get better buy-in than pushing it, on them. That's like pushing a rope, right? But on the other side, we're creating habits with making sure that we're babysitting these processes, checking in on them. So you pretty much, you should start to schedule out your meetings over at least 30 days of how things are going, get the, the key users or oversight of that tool in one room together to talk about it and follow up so that goes in place. But another thing I believe in is internally branding things, right? This process I talked about earlier, trying a goal of getting 12,000 products listed on our website by the end of the year, which we just hit, we did by creating a brand internally, a logo that our designer created called Operation 12K. Got everybody excited about it, and then when we implemented process for that, it just was easier because we all felt like we were part of something.
Yeah, it really sounds fun. I mean, I don't know if I'm too old for Jump Street 21 or 21 Jump Street, and now there's Operation 12K, and I don't know. I think I'd be the senior citizen group, but yeah, it'd be fun.
We'd take you.
It's funny that you guys are all talking about, I think we started off the conversation with, making things standard and documentation. I think creating those habits and, replicating them and every time something new comes out, they know this is how it's going to roll out is super important. Then it doesn't become buy-in anymore, it becomes culture, right? It becomes something that they're going to end up doing. All right, last question I have, and then we're going to open it up to questions because I know you guys are all dying to have questions. You guys are all end of day, right? First day, okay. We'll get it started. What parts of the refurbishing process can you automate? Sujay, I'll start with you on this one.
Oh, yeah, we probably want to start on that side, because there's so much on the front end. You can go from, everything from RMA handling and managing at the customer's end, with them sending products to you, all the way to, your receiving section. How do you automate and speed up the time to receive the products that you're about to refurbish, all the way to your testing process. There's so much you could do on the software side to automate the testing of the products, depending on how consistent the product is and the volumes of the products that you've got. I can go on for days, all the way up to, the repair of the product, all the way down to, the packaging, kitting, then to, where I guess we play, which is on the gathering the information of the product to publicly list it and list and sell the product. There's opportunities to automate everywhere. Some are complex, some are simpler. It's all about, what you're looking to do.
That's great. Anyone else want to?
I was going to say, it comes down to the low-hanging fruit, right? What's the easiest to automate, but also what's going to make you more money? And I think, that's why we saw this opportunity here. I mean, our motto is built by refurbishers for refurbishers, right? Because we had to solve the problem in-house, so why wouldn't we make that solution to push out to people that can also use it and gain a big benefit?
That's fair. Anyone else?
For servers, refurbishing, a lot of what we do is still a really bespoke process. You get an RS6000, an IBM P-Series system or a Sun system. These are going to be one-by-ones. But when we get in a pallets full of 800 Dell servers, we've got to get through that. And the only way we can make an impact is by doing it in bulk. So have the the automation, automate it, create the test reports, attach those to the ERP. As much as we can do of that, that really enables our business. So it's not where I'd start because it's pretty tough. But it was really crucial for us to be able to go through dozens of servers at once.
That's awesome. You're good on that. Okay. That's all the questions that we had today. I hope that you guys got some valuable information and that brought up some questions. I'd like to open this up to the group, to the audience today. If you guys have any questions, raise your hand, let me know what your question is. And if you have a particular question for anybody on the panel, let me know who that would be, or we can just open it up to the panel. Any questions? Wow, we did such a good job. We answered everyone's questions today. That's fantastic. Well, thank you guys for your time today. We'll end a little bit early. And there is an event tonight. I hope everybody goes there tonight. We'll see you guys in network. And if not, have fun. We'll see you tomorrow. I don't know. I'm sorry.